Welcome to a new edition of the Famous Interviews with Joe Dimino. On this episode, we talk with founder and CEO of Stellar Insight Incorporated, Mr. Brad Smith. It's a business growth consulting and coaching company. Brad has been a chemist, production plant and equipment designer, a business manager, a business consultant, and an executive coach for CEOs and business owners, amongst other things. He pursues insight and understanding into the convergence of business success, organizational excellence, and the practical actions it takes to consistently achieve significant business growth. He has coached CEOs, business owners, and legislators for organized growth and excellence for more than 25 years. He's got a great story. Enjoy the interview.
Wonderful. Hey, it's great to meet you. Thank you for taking a minute out for the program. I appreciate it.
Sure, glad to do that.
So before we get into your very esteemed life as a businessman, I want to know, the last 3 years with COVID was quite an ordeal for all of us. It worked on us all in very different ways. And I'm wondering how you survived that time period now that everything's waking up 3 years later, and how it's changed the way that you conduct business and live your life now.
Not at all, except clients weren't new clients weren't showing up. 1987, I did my bachelor's, and in 1991, I finished my MBA. My capstone project for my MBA was in 91, way before the internet happened, was on how to open up a remote office from Portland, Oregon to, let's say, Atlanta, Georgia. Remote offices have always been and working has always been part of my process since I started my coaching practice in 1996. So when COVID hit, it wasn't a change at all. I didn't see people I helped them go through that, but that was the only difference, what we talked about and how to move through that.
Right. So let me ask you this, to get to a very clear perspective on what you do on a daily basis. I'm going to put you in front of a bunch of third graders at a career day. One of the kids asks you, what do you do for a living? How do you answer that child?
I work with CEOs and business owners to help them understand how they grow their business, how they can grow their business faster, and what they're doing to interfere with that. I do it in a kind and gentle way, but I make them aware that half the reason that their company isn't growing as fast as it's possible for it to grow is for them to understand how they impact it and then how to improve that impact. That's the long version.
So let's take you back to the third grade or grade school. What did you want to be when you grew up? What was your dream?
At that time, I wanted to be both an astronomer and an engineer.
So are you happy with how everything turned out?
I'm delighted with what I get to do.
Excellent. So let's get to the seeds and the core of what made you who you are today. Let's take me back to where you were born and raised and kind of how these seeds in your childhood were planted in you to become a businessman and to help people achieve more in their lives.
There's several threads to that. I was born in Iowa. My dad, when I was 6 months old, moved from the little town he was living in Iowa to Ames, Iowa, to work on his PhD in biochemistry. He had a bachelor's degree in chemical engineering at the time, and so I grew up in a household that was completely absorbed in thinking, designing, structuring, and imagining the future. That's what I grew up in. When I was 9 years old, my dad moved us from Wisconsin at the time down to Evansville, Indiana, where he took a job with Meade Johnson and Company to be their new product director. He went there specifically with the idea of bringing to market the liquid diet drink market, and beyond that, the protein delivery market. That was his concept, and that's why he actually went to get his bachelor's or his PhD in biochemistry. So I grew up in a household that he literally invented the market for liquid diet drinks. And then we moved to Corvallis, Oregon when I was 12, and I watched him be involved in or start up on his own 34 different companies, and because he was a product development guy and not a business guy, or at least with deep business skills, he managed to kill off 30 of them, and 4 of them were successful, and 3 of them are still running 50 years later. And he raised me to think like a chemical engineer. He raised me to think of cause and effect, and if there's an effect in the world, there's a cause behind it, and if you put the right ingredients in the beaker, so to speak, you come up in the right conditions, you come up with the exact product that you want. And I look at life that way.
So, in your life, in your pursuits, who would you consider a role model or a hero for you?
My dad. He was a brilliant, kind man. That was fun. I've also studied the founding fathers of this country, George Washington, Madison, Thomas Jefferson, and their thought process on who they were and how they got to be that way. And people like Mahatma Gandhi were other heroes that I had early. So when I was in ninth grade, I was required to read the biography of Mahatma Gandhi and literally could not put it down, only to drag myself off to sleep and then wake back up and read it again. So I read it in about 2 days, 48 hours, clear through, which for me was astounding. He was my first conscious hero. My dad was the one that was before that, but was not conscious until afterwards when I looked back.
Yeah, so I'm curious, in the world of business right now, if you can meet and spend time with anybody, interview or have some time with them, who would you like to interact with in the world of business?
That is a very good question. Well, I like some of the things that, and I don't like some of the things that Elon Musk has done. He's a brilliant man. He may be a little lacking in certain areas. That would be one person I'd like to talk to. If I could, if they have to be alive, I think Bill Gates would be a good one to talk to because of his vision and ability. I've worked with many people, and they have good sides and bad sides, and you accept the parts that don't work, and you support the ideas and the concepts and the part of them that does work in the world. I support people that do big things in the world. That's important for us, and have the strength of character to hold to them even in difficult times.
So for more than 25 years you've been at it, and I'm curious, what is it that's been the chief motivator to give you this longevity and to give you this zeal for doing what you do?
For a long time, I used to say, I live on epiphany juice. When I meet someone and talk to them for the first time, I pretty much can map out their whole character and the things that support their business and the things that don't support their business, and how I can help them modify just a few decisions they've made inside themselves to change that. When they get to the place, and I know about a month ahead of time in my work with them, or maybe 2 months, that they're going to get to a specific idea. So I lead them to the epiphanies they need to get, and when it clicks into place, they're different permanently and better. That's what I live for. Whether it's money and they make more money, because that's always the result, but it's the core change in who they are that makes the difference.
So based on everything that you've seen and experienced and overcome in your life, you gain wisdom, obviously. And I'm curious, if you were to have a dream tonight and run into the 20-year-old version of yourself and you could give and dispense your advice and wisdom on that version of you, what would you say?
I have a better story than that.
Okay.
When I was 18, fall term freshman year at Oregon State, I developed an ulcerated colon badly. And the doctor said to me when I got to him in December, he said, "Gee, Brad, if you had waited 6 weeks to come see me, you would have bled to death." Well, he had my 18-year-old attention. Then he said, "You'll never eat strawberries, corn, or lettuce, or anything with roughage ever again in your life." And my 18-year-old brain said, "Pat chance, buddy, that's not happening." And then he said a single sentence that changed my life. He said, "You have a psychosomatic disease. Your emotions affect the severity of your symptoms." And in that instant, I made the decision and the full-on 100% commitment to conquer the disease. It wasn't if it was going to get conquered. I was going to conquer it because if it's psychosomatic, I could affect it. So I studied Brad deeply, studied my emotions deeply, studied patterns in my life deeply and how it affected me, finally found the cause, and over the next 4 or 5 years I got it backed up enough that I wasn't bleeding, and that took about a year and a half, and then I wasn't in pain, and that took about 5 years, except episodically through a year. And eventually I got to the place where at 47, I found a memory that I needed to change, went back in with hypnosis, changed it, and within a year my symptoms were gone permanently. That taught me how to watch people, how to know character, how to know how we affect the world around us, and is essentially the foundation I stand on so that I can help people change the results they are. I am in the middle of, or actually wrapping up, writing a book on how synchronicity works and the effect our subconscious decisions early in life make a difference in the results we achieve later on.
So of all of the people that you've helped and worked with, what's been the best success story?
Oh, I've had several. I had a client in Minnesota, and he had a team of about 150 people, and for the last 10 years, it was a 10-year-old company. He was in the CEO role, and they had an average of 2 customers a month for the last 10 years. And when I left them, which took about 3.5 years before they kind of graduated from my practice, we changed the entire structure of the company. We changed many of the personnel people that were there, and they were averaging 54 to 55 new clients a month. Significant growth.
Yeah.
I have another one that was a local client here in the Northwest, and they did manufacturing, and I took them from $3.5 million the year before we worked together to $6.5 million at the end of the year I started with them, and the year after that they were at $9.5 million, and then the following year they were at 12.9. I stopped working with them, and then he took them only to 13.2, but he increased the net profit by a factor of 5. With the things in this restructuring that we've done. So we changed people, we changed structures in the company, we changed the flow through of how things worked, the understanding of the market, and the understanding of people, and how to make the company run more efficiently and effectively, and tune the whole company to what needed to happen for the customers.
Yeah. So of everything with these success stories and everything that you've accomplished and done in your life, what are you the proudest of?
Bear with me. I get emotional about some of these. I made the commitment after watching for the probably the 20th time, It's a Wonderful Life with Jimmy Stewart. I made the commitment to myself to either be in, as I asked myself, it's like, okay, Brad, what difference are you going to make in the world? Are you going to make a little difference? You're going to make no difference. And my commitment to myself at that question was, I'll make a difference with whoever is in front of me that I can make a difference. Some I'll get paid for, some I won't get paid for, but I'll make a difference. And the example I want to give you is, I was walking into my dry cleaner one day and I saw a young woman asking for money who had a bandage on her head. And I walked in, I said, because I didn't have any cash with me at the time that was small enough to give her, she was asking for a couple bucks. And so I walked into my dry cleaner, asked for change, walked back out, and I gave her $5. And then I said to her, what I really want to give you is you're in your current situation because you've chosen to be that. I don't want that for you. I know you can do better. And so I asked her a few questions, and we went back and forth. and she had people she could blame. And I said, so if you took full responsibility for your life, you would never be harmed again, because she had been harmed. And you would never be in this situation where you have to ask people for money. Let me give you another $20, and I want you to make a difference and with yourself. And when I finished, she said, nobody has talked to me like that since my dad. And she was crying. So I'd made a difference in her life. To me, that was significant.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's get to the essence and the core of who you are. Everyone out there has a perception of you, an idea of who they think you are. Your family, friends, clients, colleagues, that you live your life. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
I am committed to being honest. I'm committed to being generous. I'm committed to being kind and thoughtful. And I'm voraciously curious. I want to know how the universe works. I want to know how and what I am. And I want to be able to find the control board, the dashboard, if you would, so that I know where the buttons are to make a difference. That's who I am.
So, Brad, if anyone out there wants to learn more about you, your company, anything pertaining to your world, where's the best place for them to go?
My website is, because I figured out how to rename my company, my website is stellarinsightinc.com. They can go to that, and they can actually set up a time to talk to me, and I would love to do that.
Brad, thank you for being raw and revealing about your story and opening up. It's a wonderful one. I can't wait to get it out. So thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate your time.
Thanks for tuning in to another famous interview with Joe Dimino, where we cover the world of art, literature, business, spirituality, music, and more from around the globe. If you want to hear more interviews, visit the Famous Interviews with Joe Dimino channel on YouTube. You can also find us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Thanks again for listening, and until next time.